The most efficient would be to use one agent, but there's sometimes not always that trust that's there.
Exactly. And building that trust is so critical. And I could go on for a while about this. The bottom line,
should I sell the house before or after we get a divorce?
That's a really good question and an open-ended one. Hard to tell, hard to answer with a straight before. There's a lot of variables that go into that. The court might determine that the house has to be sold before the divorce or after the divorce, depending on the situation. It's really hard to say. Do both spouses have a place to go before the divorce? A lot of times when you're going through this, it's just so emotionally draining and difficult, and you're going through so many emotions. To have to try to find a house on top of that is just can be devastating for some people. On the flip side, you might have to, again, depending on your situation, you might have to sell the house before the divorce or by a certain date to fulfill the terms of the settlement, the divorce agreement. It's really a tough yes or no answer or before or after answer. It really has a lot of variables.
If, let's say in the first scenario, none of us are going to be like living in the house. We've decided we want to sell the house. She doesn't want to live there, or one person doesn't want to live there and the other person doesn't want to live there. They both don't want to live there. When should you sell the house in that scenario?
If that's the case, I would certainly consult with the realtor. If neither party wants to live in the home and both parties are in a position where they've identified a property to either move to or rent to, or whatever, then it just becomes a question of how long it would take to get the house on the market. There's no point in paying bills and mortgages and taxes on a property that no one wants to be in. Right. So under that scenario, you would work to get the house ready for sale as soon as possible and sell it. Certainly right now in this market that we're in, we are desperate for listings. There's just not enough listings out there to warrant the demand. Now is a great time to list your house in that particular scenario.
Yeah, and that was a good point. There's no point in paying like taxes or like the mortgage on the house that no one's maybe living in. Like the sooner the better. Plus also there's work to be done when you're listing a house a lot of times to get it prepared and ready for the market.
Yes, absolutely. You might need that time to do some cosmetic updating or what have you. So yes, absolutely.
And then in the case where one spouse is going to be buying the other out, could you walk through that process?
In that scenario, the spouse all the parties are going to have to come to terms on the money that's going to be exchanged, how much the home's value is, what the home's purchase price is going to be, any types of repairs that are going to be made to the home prior to the closing. The spouse who's staying in the home is going to need to get a new mortgage. You can't just stay on the existing mortgage that you're in, because one of the names is going to have to come off the deed of the home. So there are certainly things that you're going to have to do. It's in many ways, it's almost like starting like you're buying a new house, but obviously you're staying in the current one, but under new management, if you will.
Yes. No, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then like after both parties have settled what's going to happen, or if they can stay in the house, then they'll do basically, I guess, like with that party that's going to stay in the house, they submit a formal offer like on the house pretty much to buy.
You don't need to necessarily submit a formal offer, but you do need, through your attorneys, all of the paperwork needs to be, all the T's need to be crossed and the I's need to be dotted, and there needs to be an understanding of exactly what the purchase price is going to be, the dates, all that. So in some ways it's like submitting a formal offer, but you're not necessarily having to submit the offer paperwork. But it's going to be written up in the divorce agreement what the home is being sold for and when and all that stuff, how much money is being put down, all of that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. How does, I guess, is that considered like a closed sale? So like one of the parties is going to be staying in the house. You don't technically go in the market to list the house. Or do you use one real estate agent, or like how does typically that process work?
So that's a really good question. You would use an agent. That's a long question. So It depends on if the parties are amicable or not. If they're amicable, usually what happens is they will bring in one agent to give an opinion of value. And based on that, they will then come to an agreement on what the spouse that's staying in the home is going to pay the exiting spouse. If it's not amicable, then usually there's a lot of distrust between the two parties. And each party might want their own agent to value the home. And in that situation, you're going to have at least two agents coming with a home valuation. And typically what will happen is the attorney or the attorneys will then make a decision on what agent is going to be eventually used to either market and sell the home if they're going to be selling, or in this particular case, the attorneys will most likely just make a determination on which agent valuation of the home will be used. I've been in scenarios where that's been the case. I've been in scenarios where it hasn't, but it's just that the parties have been amicable about it. I think from the biggest challenge for me as a realtor working in divorces, I'm always brought into it with one spouse. It's my job then to go out and earn the trust of the other spouse, which can be challenging sometimes, especially again if the spouses are not amicable. Oftentimes I'm brought in by the attorneys, halfway through or whatnot. Either I'm assigned, they're saying you're going to be working, Adam Shamus is going to be selling the house, or I'm brought in by one party and I then need to establish rapport and trust with the other party as well.
The most efficient would be to use one agent, but there's sometimes not always that trust that's there.
Exactly. And building that trust is so critical. And I could go on for a while about this. The bottom line is you need to make sure that you are there's no favoritism. And my job is to sell the house. And here's how we're going to do it. And here's the price. And if I'm communicating a certain message to spouse A, I'm communicating the exact same message to spouse B. There's no favoritism. There's no leaning one way. I'm always communicating in writing to both spouses usually. So that's how you have to establish rapport and trust between two parties when they're not in the best of spots.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not always a straightforward answer, but in these kind of situations.
It's almost never a straightforward answer when it comes to divorce in real estate.
Mm-hmm. It's relationships. But cool, Adam, thank you for giving us a little bit insight on this.
Hey guys, if you're liking this content and are eager to hear more, I would encourage you to keep on watching. Click on the button to subscribe, and you will be the first to get new, fresh content as soon as I put it on the internet.